who had absolutely nothing to lose. That is an absolute historical lie. 24 of them were outstanding attorneys. 9 were wealthy plantation owners. 23 remaining were all men of distinction, and they had a great deal to lose to birth freedom in these United States. When they met in the Pennsylvania State House, they pledged to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Say that with me. Our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred Our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Walk with me for a few minutes down the halls of American history. What happened to those 56 men who signed that declaration, who were being labeled around the world as traitors? Carter Braxton of Virginia, wealthy planter and trader, saw his ship swept from the 7 seas. To pay his debt, he lost his home and all the properties that he owned, and he died in rags. He pledged his life, his fortune, and his sacred honor. He kept his honor, but he lost his life and he lost his fortune for your freedom. Thomas Lynch Jr., a third-generation rice farmer, aristocrat, and had a large plantation. After he signed, his health failed. And with his wife, they set sail for France to regain his wealth. The ship never arrived in France, and he was never heard from again. Thomas McKeon of Delaware was so harassed by the British that he was forced to move his family 5 times in 5 months. He served Congress without pay. Think of that. His family lived in poverty and in hiding. The British looted and burned all the properties of Ellery, Clymer, Hall, Gwinnett, Walton, Hayward, Rutledge, and Midland. Burned them out, and they lost everything. Thomas Nelson Jr. of Virginia, after whom Thomas Nelson Publishing Company is named, raised $2 million on his own signature for provision for our fighting troops. After the war, he personally paid back the loans. It wiped out his entire estate, and he was never reimbursed by our government. In the very last battle, when liberty was hanging in the balance at Yorktown, Nelson urged General Washington to fire on his own home because it was occupied by the British commander Cornwallis. His home was totally destroyed. Nelson died bankrupt and was buried in an unmarked grave. This from a man who was a multi-millionaire who had much to lose, but he pledged his life, his fortune, and his honor. He kept his honor, he lost his fortune and his life. John Hart was driven by the British from his wife's bedside while she was dying. He had 13 children, and they fled in all directions into the woods as the British were approaching his house. His fields were burned. His gristmill was laid waste. For more than a year, he lived in the forest. He returned home after a year to find his wife dead. His children was gone, his properties were gone, and he died a few days later of a broken heart. He pledged his life, his fortune, and his sacred honor. Those 56 men paid a precious price for the liberty and the freedom that we enjoy.